Hello everybody, my name is Christian, and today, I've actually messed up this video. So, I've messed it up in a way that you're probably not expecting. This video was initially supposed to be what characters I think should be buffed next in HSR. I had a whole list written out, I was really happy with it, and then I realized I spent 16 minutes talking only about the standard banner characters, and about 8 minutes about yanqing specifically. Because I spent so much time talking about buffs I specifically wanted for standard banner characters, this makes more sense to just have as two completely separate videos now. So, this video will be only about the standard banner characters and the buffs that I want them to have, and the next video that will come out, ideally, will be about the characters I want to see buffed in Honkai Star Rail. Sorry about the confusion, but I think this will be two pretty good videos, and I hope that you all enjoy. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe down below, check out our YouTube memberships, and yeah, let's get into the video. Okay, so, the first character I want to talk about, the first character on the list, is actually a set of characters. We really should buff the standard banner characters, I'm gonna be honest. So, here's the thing, is that there are 7 of them. That is a lot to work through, so I can't expect all 7 to be buffed like overnight. They're all gonna be buffed for the next update. That's a bit insane. So instead, let's talk about the ones that I think need to be buffed the most to the least. Also, I will fully admit, this section is not going to be anywhere near as detailed as the rest of them, mostly because it's 7 characters. We are not spending that long on all of them, or else this video will be 50 minutes. Let's pause real quick and take a brief word from our sponsor, LD Shop. With so many good characters coming out soon, many players simply don't have the jades they need to get them all. Now, if only there was a cheaper way to get top-ups for games like Star Rail and ZZZ. Well, that's where the sponsor of the video comes in, LD Shop. LD Shop is a safe and reliable top-up site for all your favorite games. They offer top-ups at a more affordable price than in-game, and can even activate your first top-up bonus if you haven't used it already. All you have to do is click the bundle you want, put in your server and UID, and your top-up will appear in-game shortly after. If you buy using my link as well, you can get a 5% and 15% coupon good for $50. Last but not least, if you consistently use LD Shop and spend over $80 for the month, you can get an Express Supply Pass completely free on your homepage. Use the link in the description or the pinned comment. Thank you so much to LD Shop for sponsoring. Let's get back to the video. Alright, so, out of all the standard banner characters, I think the ones that need to be buffed the most off-rip, it's pretty easily yanqing. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's close either. The thing is, with DPS specifically, DPS are the easiest characters to get outdated. They're constantly releasing new damage dealers and new ways to deal damage, so a character who was released longer ago is not going to have the same multipliers, the same res pen, just the same advantages as a character who was released more recently. And even when the game was still young, we had yanqing on the standard banner, and then we immediately get Xlipyth, another ice DPS who is also multi-target instead of single target, and she had higher multipliers than yanqing as well. She literally buried yanqing in a ditch and didn't look back. That's insane. So when you think about that, yeah, yanqing wasn't even useful for that long, and that's just kind of sad. He just never had that same utility as many of the other standard banner characters, because even nowadays, many of the standard banner characters can still be useful, or are still useful in some way, shape, or form. We can look at Himiko, for example. Himiko has kind of found a little niche as a great character for pure fiction in almost every single rotation, and she can also be found in a lot of break teams. She serves as a pretty decent break DPS, and while I wish her charge limit was higher because Jesus Christ almighty, she would be disgusting, it's still pretty good and she does a sufficient job in those roles. Then we can look at someone like Bronya. Bronya is still constantly in zero cycle teams. She has some of the best eidolons for any of the standard banner characters, so if you've had Bronya for a long time and have accumulated eidolons, your Bronya is probably pretty cracked at this point. And then let's take a look at Clara. Clara is not an amazing DPS character, but at the same time, just by being a counter character, she's more unique and can automatically be a bit more useful in different scenarios than the single target of yanqing. She can hit multiple enemies, she can constantly hit back extremely hard. Once again, if you have Eidolons as well, her damage does go up a significant amount. And overall, she just covers a bit more of the game's enemies than yanqing will. Yeah, it's just sad, honestly. It's just really depressing. But yeah, yanqing just doesn't have anything going for him, like at all. So let's take a look at yanqing real quick, just to kind of talk about just how bad he is, I've got to be honest. Alright, so let's take a look at this real quick. Skill, Darting Iron Thorn. Deals ice damage equal to 220% of yanqing's attack to a single enemy and activates Soul Steel Sync for 1 turn. So what is Soul Steel Sync, you might be asking? Well, when this is active, yanqing is less likely to be attacked. His crit rate increases by 20, his crit damage by 30, and after he attacks, there is a 60% fixed chance to perform a follow-up attack. That also has a base chance to freeze the enemy. When he receives damage, this effect will go away. Yeah. It's, So once again, let's go back to Xlipyth real quick. So she gets a 50% crit damage increase, her action advanced, and access to an enhanced skill. And if she gets hit, she gets to keep it. Yeah, this sucks. The biggest problem with yanqing is that why are we limiting his follow-up attack, which is going to be his core form of getting more damage? Why are we doing that? By limiting that, it really, really hurts his potential for higher damage. Not to mention, it's also the fact that if he gets hit, he loses this enhanced form. Well, enhanced form, it's really just like a few buffs, which aren't even as substantial as other characters. But either way, if he gets hit, he loses this. Why? What is the point of that? That's horrible. And it makes him less likely to be attacked by enemies. But a lot of enemies can still do AoE. Like, think about the Wolf Troopers for Hule, for example. You're telling me a literal mob enemy can destroy his entire purpose as a character? That is a joke. Yeah, overall, that ability just sucks. And then when you look at a lot of his Eidolons and a lot of his major traces, nothing really helps him per se either. There's nothing that scales well, nothing that's really going to help him in a lot of cases. It's just unfortunate. Yeah, that's depressing. Yanqing just doesn't have anything that can really help him in modern day. And the thing is, though, is that buffing him already becomes hard, because what are you gonna do to make him better? You can make the Soul Steel Sync not go away after being hit, you can guarantee a follow-up attack, but then he just becomes another one of the hunt follow-up DPSs. It's a hard space to be in with yanqing, but man, that character has not been any form of useful in forever, and he is by far the worst standard banner character to get. Gepard and Bailu aren't amazing, but the thing is though is that they are sustains, and sustains automatically hold more value than a bad DPS. Even Welt, who is a bad DPS, he still has more utility because of his unique nature as a sustain for Acheron teams. That one piece of just meta relevance is enough for Welt to cling on higher than anything yanqing can do. Out of all the standard banners, he needs to be buffed first, and he needs to be buffed the most. He desperately needs it. So now we can move on to some of the other characters I just mentioned, Gepard and Bailu. This one is pretty simple, I feel like. I don't want to get too much into this, but Aventurine exists, which has completely invalidated Gepard as a character. Gepard also just has really no damage dealing capabilities. His ability to freeze can be helpful, but at the same time, it's really not that impactful, and in certain teams it's actually a net negative. And overall, there's really just not any reason to use him. Shields can be helpful. Shields, I really like shields as a concept. The problem is that shields are also really hard to keep innovating around, which is why EffMTee is the last preservation character we've gotten, whereas Abundance keeps growing. I don't really know how they can improve on this design for Gepard, but man, I don't know, they just need to figure out something. Maybe lowering his energy cost for his ultimates, or making the shield stick around for longer. Anything that kind of gets him closer to that EffMTee level without imposing on EffMTee, because obviously that's your premium character, that's the one you want people to get. But still, I don't know, he's just not impressive in any regard, and we really need to enhance him in some way. So now, moving on to Bailu, just give her a cleanse. Honestly, if you made Bailu have a cleanse, that's the only thing you changed about her. Maybe not good, but she would be a better character. Not having a cleanse and any part of her kit, and instead having the revive when if you die, you're already kinda cooked, that sucks. That is really bad. AoE, like, bounce healing also is not very good, but for the most part, her healing numbers are pretty solid, so I guess that's fine if you want to keep it as a unique mechanic. Like, at least it's different. It's not cool, but it's unique. It's something that's not just hit button, there you go, everybody gains 1200 health back, happy days. It's at least kind of interesting. But man, just not having a cleanse is a death sentence in today's game. You need a cleanse for your healer. I would also say offensive capabilities are important for healers, but I really do just think, as standard banner characters, since these are the most readily available characters in the game, if you do not want to change them substantially, that's understandable, that's fine. But just give her a cleanse, man. That's all I'm asking for here. Do you know how many people that would make happy? The people would be singing to the heavens if Bailu had a cleanse, I promise you that. Alright, so now, as for the other standard banners, I mean, we still have Welt, we have Himiko, we have Clara, and we have Bronya. These four characters kinda have a bit more usability than the other ones I've just mentioned. Welt is definitely the lowest on that list. The problem with Welt is that slow is just a fundamentally kinda cooked product in this game. Slow can only do so much, because it's not a traditional DOT, so working it into DOT is not really the most efficient. His damage overall can be decent, but it's still not ever going to be fantastic with the way he's designed. And overall, he doesn't even fit as a Nihility. Most people use him as a crit damage DPS. The way to fix him, honestly, I think would just be changing him around more so that he fits the identity of a crit damage DPS rather than a Nihility character. I don't know how exactly you're going to go about that because Standard Banner needs one of everything. But we gotta do something for him just to make sure that people understand he's not good in his current form. They need to build him as a crit damage DPS, and they should be rewarded for building him as a crit damage DPS. Maybe increase his multipliers, kind of reduce the slow effect or the necessity of the slow effect, like just really lower his effect hit rate requirements. There's a few things we could do, but I would love to see Welt just kind of change to fit more of a DPS identity. It'd be a lot more fun, and also I think a lot of people would enjoy that much more than the awkward position he's currently in, where he's not really good for anyone, but he's still a bit better than the bottom of the barrel, and he just kind of sits there on his one possible team where he's still not even the ideal solution. Himiko, Bronya, and Clara, I'm gonna be honest, if you're gonna buff them, just do minor changes. There isn't anything that's super required. I would say for Bronya, the biggest change in the world would be her E6 makes her skill the same as all the other action advancers. Make that into her base kit. That is the only change Bronya would need. Make her skill last for 2 turns. That is the only change Bronya needs. Once you do that, the character's good again. The character's cracked. As for Himiko, I would say mainly just increase the charge limit. That's really all I have to comment on her. She's in a spot where she's never going to be a perfect all-around DPS because she's erudition. However, she can still do really good in pure fiction, and she does have some scenarios where she can be really fun to use in break teams. I really do just think that the charge limit being capped at 3 and it cannot exceed it at all is a huge nerf on her and this kind of new life that she's found recently. If we fix that, Himiko honestly becomes a decent bit better just off of that one change alone. I don't think you really need to worry about anything else for her. Why is somebody listening to a Spotify song where the cover art is just ass cheeks? What the hell? And lastly for Clara, if you've ever read Clara's E1, it talks about marks of counter, which is a huge part of her kit, and it'll no longer remove them to a certain degree. Make that into her base kit. And she just becomes so much better. I would also say maybe increase her enhance counter by 1 tier, so instead of 2 uses, give her 3. But that's also, yeah, that might be a bit much, but I really do think switching that E1 to be a part of the core kit would make the character so much better. It's really that simple. These top 3 characters, they all have like an eidolon or some very specific part of their kit. If that one specific part was better, they would be a better character automatically. If they were gonna buff these characters, I honestly wouldn't even need big changes. Just do those little things and you would see play rates skyrocket, I feel like. The characters would be in a much better place, much more popular. I would just love to see that, and it wouldn't be that much effort as well, if it's just changing one little thing in most cases. Yeah, overall, standard banner can be definitely a bit rough. I really hope they do buff them at some point, but I'm not sure how likely that one is to happen as much as I would love to see it myself. Okay, now let's move on to actual different characters that a lot more people would be interested in seeing buffed. And this is where I finally started discussing characters that weren't standard banner characters. Again, I hope you guys can kind of understand why I did end up splitting this into 2 different videos, just because of how long this one segment was. Knowing that it is 2 different videos now, I kind of wish I went into more detail, specifically about Clara and Himiko, since their major traces do have a lot of issues that, if improved, would make the character so much better. All in all, at the very least, I hope that this sparks some good debate in the comments, and yeah, because I'm sure plenty of you have great ideas that you would love to see implemented, so leave them down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've got more good stuff coming out, so I will see you guys then. Bye-bye.